One of the most difficult things that every student has trouble on is figuring out how exactly to space our graph. Remember, our graph needs to be even spacing. Okay, what that means is if you're telling me that we're starting here with 0, 1, 2, 3, this one can't jump to 7, right? You're telling me each of these spaces is 1 and the same amount of space is 4. We have to make sure our scaling is even. And here's a really easy way to do that. All right, let's just go ahead and take a look at this. We're going to know that our time is down here because we're dealing with a line graph, and we're going to deal with glucose level on the y-axis because what we're measuring. Okay. If you take a look, let's do our y-axis first. I look at our highest number, right? So our highest number is 245, right? That's a lot, okay? And if we're going to be starting at 0, it's kind of difficult to figure out, how much does each line actually represent? Here's an easy way to do that. If you go ahead and count our lines, okay, if you were to count each of our graph lines, there'd be about 20 here. Okay, so if I go ahead and do 245, our highest number, divided by the number of lines, that's going to give me 12.25. Okay, that's kind of an ugly number to work with, right? It's going to give you uneven scaling, but that tells you an approximation of what you could actually use. You can have everyone go by tens, right? Then you might end up going, maybe need to draw some lines up here on the graph, or maybe 15, right? Let's go 15 because that might be a little bit easier. Right, so each of these lines are going to represent 15 milliliters. Okay, so let me go ahead and clear the playing field here a little bit. All right, so if you take a look here, I went ahead and labeled every line being 15 units. Okay, now see here that it is pretty cramped here. So there is another way that you can do this. Another way is you can actually just skip lines. If you wanted to, you don't have to write 30 right there. You don't have to write 60, right? As long as every single line represents the same amount of units, you should be fine, right? So here, my first line is 15, skip one, and then we're at 45, right? So each line still represents 15. Each way is technically correct, right? So there's no reason that you need to write every single unit on every single line. You can skip lines, you can skip 3 lines. It just depends on how you, the person, wants to set up the graph, as long as they are correctly evenly spaced. Okay, let's take a look at a different example with a little bit smaller numbers. Okay, if I'm looking at this example, okay, I'm looking at the number of bacteria and the number of days, right? So I have my labels here. Let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Right, in my number of days, right, I only have 6. That's my highest number. And there's about 20 lines here, right? I don't want to make my graph look like this. Okay, you want to make sure that you take up at least most of the graph space that is provided because again, in science, we really want to see trends in our data. So in this situation, we might want to skip some lines. Right? So say that's 0. Let's skip every 3, right? 1, 2, 3. That's going to be day 1. 1, 2, 3. That's going to be day 2. 1, 2, 3. 3, 4, 5. Okay, you guys get the picture. And for here, okay, for our y-axis, our number of bacteria, our highest number is 200. Again, like I already said, go ahead and count how many lines that you have. And it just so happens to work out that each of our lines, we have about 20 lines. So if we do 200 divided by 20, that's going to be about 10. Right? So again, I prefer not to write and have everything very much cramped. So we're going to go ahead and skip lines, right? So we're going to have 0 here, and then we're going to have 20. That'd be 30. That'd be 40. That'd be 50. That'd be 60. That'd be 70. This would be 70 actually. And then you can go all the way up until you be up here somewhere in 200. Again, you want to make sure that you spread out your graph well enough so that you're able to see actual trends in the data, and that's not just a little squiggle down there in the corner.